Want to go far in business and in life? You can't do it alone. The secret is expanding your network of personal relationships, building friendships, connecting on an intimate level, away from the office, over a coffee or cocktail. Welcome to All In with the real Nate Payo. The show that asks what happens when you go all in and leverage the power of your network of personal relationships.
From author Donnie Boivin comes the book, How to Be a Success Champion, available on Amazon. After years of living other people's dreams, author Donnie Boivin decided to jump out on his own and start a business, thinking it would be easy. Instead, he had a rude awakening and quickly understood that he had spent 20 years being an employee and had no idea how to be a business owner. His business was tanking, and he was on the brink of losing everything when he decided to fight for business freedom. In this must-read and life-changing book, author Donnie Boivin shares with readers his story intermingled with lessons learned from his mistakes and his failures. In How to Be a Success Champion, you will find advice the author received from mentors and how he went from zero to a six-figure business. The author walks you through the steps of how to get out of your own way, how to play the game of business and win, find your strengths, how to network effectively, how to build a personal brand, how to create champions for your business, how to get great at sales, how to take complete ownership of you and your business. How to Be a Success Champion from author Donnie Boivin, available on Amazon in both Kindle and paperback editions. Order your copy right now. It makes a great book for corporate events too. How to Be a Success Champion from author Donnie Boivin, available on Amazon.
Hello, and welcome to the All In podcast with Nate Payo. Of course, I am your host, Nate Payo. My guest today is heart-centered entrepreneur Abigail Gazda. She has transformed her passion for education into a full-time career as a motivational speaker, author, and life coach. Abigail is the CEO of Hearts Unleashed, a full-service transformation company committed to empowering people to operate with full freedom, power, and self-expression in every area of life. She is a clarity coach and supports souls speaking up about their silent struggle and unleashing the authentic leader within. As the host of the Hearts Unleashed podcast, she is committed to turning dreamers into doers and helping raise the frequency of humanity with the development of emotional intelligence. And as the author of Giving Up, the Memoir of a Quitter, she personally thrives the most in life while adventuring, writing, educating, laughing, surfing, and rollerblading around the SoCal coast. Welcome to the show, Abigail.
Welcome. Thank you. That was a mouthful.
I ask to make sure I pronounce people's names correctly. Did I get your last name right?
Got it. Yeah.
I forgot to ask. I was like,
it's funny. I always joke. I say, if you're from the Midwest, it's Abigail Gazda with the sharp vowels.
Abigail. Yeah, that's funny. We're from the Midwest, so we know what that's like. Yeah. You get some tacos and some quesadillas, right?
Yeah, especially out on the SoCal coast, people are like, "Ooh, you're not from around here. You said avocado. What is that?"
I know. When I first moved to California, I would call stuff like I'd go, I don't know, maybe this was just a Nebraska thing, but we'd go to the bar and be like, "Can I get 2 draws?" And they're like, "What's a draw of beer?" I'm like, "Off the tap." They're like, "No, it's a draft." I'm like, "Oh, I call them draws." Or you go, "What kind of, I think I'll get a pop." And you're like,
yeah, pop, definitely. They're like, soda? You can have a soda. And I'm like, I don't want a soda.
Yeah. Cool. So, welcome to the show. I love hearing about quitters and people that have decided that they're done being quitters. So I'd like to start the conversation there. What is the Memoir of a Quitter? Were you used to be a quitter?
Well, I actually was a non-quitter, like a super non-quitter, like a all-in kind of in the unhealthy way, right? Because I think that there's a finesse to being all in or being a quitter, like healthy quitting, right? I think that when we're taught in our youth that quitting is bad or losers or quitters. That's kind of how I open up the book. Like, if you're a quitter, you're a failure, right? Well, I didn't quit anything, and it cost me a lot of mental health and sanity and relationships and connection. And so I had to shift, because I'm certainly not a quitter, right? I am persistent and consistent and faithful and dedicated and motivated, but in the most healthy way now. And in my past, that wasn't the case. A good for example from the book and from my life is I tore my knee up in college basketball. I was an athlete my entire life. And my sophomore year, I tore my ACL and did not quit. I went through surgery, and in 4 months, I was back to running 4 miles a day and, really wanted to come back. But I did more damage to my knee being that in that hustle mentality than I did in understanding what healthy healing was like. And so all I knew was that nose to the grindstone kind of work ethic, and it cost me a lot more than it helped me in life. And so once I had enough breakdowns with that mentality, I knew, like, I didn't know I had to switch. Like, I learned I had to switch. You have to switch that up. So that's what I mean by it.
I've been in that place a lot. Like, I grew up in the Midwest, and I think a lot of people know this. You're kind of trained a lot of work ethic. You show up, you don't quit, you do a good job, whatever it is you're doing. And you put forth that effort into whatever it is you're doing. And sometimes that thing you're working on has ran its course. So like there's no sense in continuing it on, but you don't want to give up. And like, even to this day, there's things I've quit in my life, and I still like regret, like, I should have stuck with that. But I wouldn't say regret, but I have these feelings of it. And I kind of look back and go, really? Like, those things you did give up, you could have gone down this path, but it wasn't your path to go down. Like, you have to like realize, like, you did what you could do there. And even the thing where, like, I've quit things, you've probably done this too. You quit things, you leave them, and you maybe have regret that you quitted, or maybe you gave up too soon, and you go back to them and you think like, hey, I'll go back. And then once you go back, it's like, it's never the same as it once was. And you're just like, now you've quit it twice. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm like the double quitter. I'm just a constant failure. And there is some truth into that. Like, quitting and failing isn't the end of your story. It's the end of that lesson. And you can pick up the pieces and carry on. And I've used the idea of quitting as an idea not to start something too, just for the fact of like, well, I'm probably not going to do this for more than a year, so why get started? And then you go, okay, I'm not going to do it. But the thing is like, sometimes that's all you need to do something for is a brief period of time, and you're going to evolve and transition for that. So interesting take.
You said so many beautiful things there. I would love to speak into what you shared, because like the work I do as a coach, I'm an emotional intelligence expert. And so I help people understand a lot of what you were just sharing about, right? Which is like the energetic endings, understanding the difference between when you've drugged something out far beyond it, when it's, like you said, it ran its course, and then we don't know how to leave it, right? Or understanding that, like, you know what, I think this has served its purpose in my life. And to refuse to quit when you know to quit, like, because we've never been really taught to listen to our intuition. In school, we've been trained to like listen to what other people tell us about ourselves. And so when, if we want to leave maybe a career, we're ready for a big transition in life, maybe a relationship that isn't serving us. And it doesn't have to be a romantic one. It might be a friendship, a family relationship that is starting again to cost us more than it's creating for us. If we don't sense the energetic ending, and we just keep pushing because we think it's what we're supposed to do, we end up 100 miles in the wrong direction. And that's usually when people have some type of breakdown where they go through an identity crisis, because it's like, wait a minute, I am not being me. I'm definitely not being myself, or I don't like who I've become. And it becomes a real awakening period for a lot of people. And then the one other thing that you mentioned was about like alignment, is like, oh, if it's not in alignment with what I want to be doing 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it's either a healthy milestone or it's just not for you, right? Like, but you said being able to discern what to start and what not to start too is a really important lesson in quitting.
Yeah, for sure. So would you say that people, you touched a bit on career choices and relationship choices and maybe even activities, but like, what do you find people are, they're easy to give up some things, but they really are challenged to quit on other things? Maybe they've relationships or careers. Like, what do you find people struggle the most with to making a good introspection and decision to quit or not to quit on something?
Great question. And I have an answer that might not, it's not a direct one yet, right? Is people pleasing.
Okay.
How to quit what is, are you doing this for you, or are you doing this for fear of someone else's opinion of what you do, right? Or fear of rejection, or a fear of whatever that might be, judgment, right? If you know something within your heart, I'm ready to quit this, and you don't, it's likely because you're afraid of the consequences of quitting it. And so, because we can quit something that's frustrating or that we just don't like or whatever, but then sometimes we don't. We do a lot of things we don't like to do just to please other people. So you really got to look at what for am I doing anything I'm doing? And if you can really get serious and honest with yourself about what for or why you're doing something, and you realize it's not for your personal gain or pleasure, then it's probably not for you.
You know, while you were saying that, I was just kind of this idea of like, hey, I'm doing this for somebody else's acceptance. Okay. But it's almost the opposite. There's things you don't do because of you're worried for losing acceptance. So you hold yourself back and you got to quit quitting. Maybe that was the point of your story here. But like, let's say you want to do something like, hey, this is me. This is what I want to do. I feel compelled to do this. But if I do it, my friends might go, hey, what are you doing? That's like, let's hold you back, or like they're gonna make fun of me. So you go, you're not, in a sense, doing something to please people. You're not doing something to not displease somebody, and you got to identify that too, because that can hold you back from being your authentic self.
Most definitely. It's that other side of the same coin, that's for sure. Is, our only job here is to become the fullest version of ourselves. And I enjoy that concept because we are definitely afraid of unleashing our hearts. We are definitely afraid of being our most authentic self for fear of judgment. The same judgment, right? Like, oh, you should be doing this, or you should be doing that, or you should be doing it this way. And we know, like, if we're given the opportunity, we can find out what we're good at, and we can actually get paid to be ourselves. But we think we're supposed to blend it in with some societal norm, and we get real far away from ourselves.
Yeah, that is for sure the truth. So you've also got a brand around the Hearts Unleashed and a transformation company, the Hearts Unleashed podcast. Talk a little bit about how that got started. What is Hearts Unleashed, and why you? What made you go down this path in life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm really enjoying your questioning. So, it didn't choose me, or like I didn't choose it. It chose me, kind of thing. Is I've been growing, specifically in the world of transformation since 2016. I have actually my degree in physical education and health. I was a teacher. I managed gyms. So I didn't exactly think I'd be a life coach, and I specifically call myself a clarity coach. Now, when I started my life, or like I always, being from a small town in Indiana, all I ever knew was the kind of heart I have, I've seen it on display as a teacher. So I want to be a teacher, right? And so like the caring and wanting to contribute to people and help children become contributing members of society. Well, when I hit that goal, the vision changed. Like the four walls of a classroom or my gymnasium, it wasn't big enough anymore. I knew I wanted to have this like global impact, and that was within. It was just this like driving force all the time. And I ended up so I knew I wanted to open a gym, so I focused on that. And I was managing gyms for about 6 years and hired someone who invited me to her life coach training program. And I observed the program and signed up immediately. And then the Hearts Unleashed, specifically that purpose came out of me. I was in a seminar and I went up and they said, what are you the possibility of in this world? And like, just in the most, I was like, I am the possibility of Hearts Unleashed, like hearts being unleashed around me. People have permission to be themselves. And it just kept spilling. And I mean, I said a lot more that day, but it just kept coming out. And so I knew that, and I kind of wore it as an identity or a badge. And then I named the company after it. And then the podcast, it's kind of funny because for about 6 months, I knew I wanted to do a podcast. And I'm like, what's the topic? Like, what can carry the weight of hundreds of episodes, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm driving and all of a sudden it's like, Hearts Unleashed, right? Like that's it. And there's millions of hearts being unleashed, or can be, or already. And so it's just totally developed. And it's kind of funny because it's almost poetic in the sense that everything I end up talking about is about people living their heart unleashed. It always comes back around.
That's an amazing topic to do. And there's so much inspiration. And I think why people should share their stories of becoming their true self, what they're called to do, their best version of themselves possible, what their potential is because we never know who we relate to. Like, we never know whose story is going to make that difference. So when you're just telling your story, there's going to be some people that relate to it, and there's going to be people that don't relate to it, and they don't like you, but they might like the story of your guest. And if you want to impact as many people, live up to your potential, you have to find a way to share your message that's going to relate to other people. And so I tell people all the time, like, I could say the exact same thing as you, like word for word, the exact same thing, but it might not resonate when I say it, but it resonates when you say it, and vice versa, so it's so important to lean into that. And I think a lot of us know our own story, like every bit of detail about it. So we don't think it's interesting. Like, I hear your story, like, wow, that's amazing. You had all these things happen to you and you overcame and you did this, and you're just like, well, I might have too, or somebody else in general is like, you have an amazing story too. You just forget that, like, other people don't know everything you know, and you need to share it. And why did you go down this path? What did you learn from this? How did you influence it? And then there's something that you're struggling with that you've overcame, or you're in the process of overcoming, and you talk about it, and somebody else will reach out to you and say, hey, I'm that person. I'm in that same boat as you. And I thought I was all by myself, and I should, and I was suffering because of it. And I've realized I'm not alone, and there's other people like me. I can reach out, I can find support, and I can lean into being the best version of myself possible. So it's an amazing journey. I don't know what your vision that you're up to, the Hearts Unleashed, it captures it fully. It makes perfect sense. Like, there's amazing things going on with it. So awesome stuff. What's been like your biggest hurdle overcoming as you transitioned from what you grew up doing and knowing to becoming the Hearts Unleashed, the founder of this movement? What's been the things that you've struggled with that have held you back?
Yeah, I think I'll encapsulate it with the answer of like the different identity crises that have occurred, right? Because I could probably give you like 4 and 5 examples of where I've been held up in that process. But like, definitely the identity crisis of tearing up my knee in college. Like, I lost the athlete identity, even though, because I didn't quit. I stayed a college athlete for 3 more years, and I did a lot of damage to my knee and then my mental health. But then for me, a really pivotal moment was divorce. That I actually signed up for my life coaching program in November of 2015, and it started in February of 2016. And 3 days before the life coaching program started, my husband asked me for a divorce. And I didn't plan for that. I didn't know that that was coming. And I knew I was becoming a coach, but I didn't know what wasn't coming with me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a big obstacle because it was the first time in my entire life that I had to prioritize my mental health. As an athlete, as a blue collar mentality kind of gal, like I knew hard work. So I knew you just go, right? Like you just hustle through it. It will work out. You can make it happen. But it wasn't about that anymore. Like I could achieve whatever I wanted in life, but my mind wasn't with it anymore. Mm-hmm. I didn't have motivation or passion or fulfillment. And so I had to say, I'm not doing all right. I feel rejected. I feel hurt. I feel very confused. And so I had to get in touch. I had to unify my head and my heart before I could ever do anything else to impact other people anymore. And so that was the biggest obstacle, was really coming around to the place where I was okay mentally and physically and from a heart space to be able to show up for people. And, along the way, one of the other biggest obstacles, because I'm an inspiring person, period. Like, I think I was just kind of born that way, but like becoming a businesswoman was also a big obstacle. Understanding the ins and outs of how to be, how to turn healing and passion work into a profit. You might always have good intentions, but good intentions don't pay bills. And I mean that from such love, but you have to learn the ins and outs of business to be able to do it effectively that actually keeps your passion alive. Because there's been time over the last 4 years where my passion wasn't as strong because I wasn't making the income or couldn't figure those pieces out. And now I've been able to really, really get it all going.
How did you learn that was lacking in your life and it was something that you needed to focus on and get better at? Because I think a lot of people struggle with ideas around various things, but specifically money or being compensated for their value. Like, you have no problem getting a job and saying, hey, I'm going to pay you value to do this work. Yeah, okay. But if I do this for myself, why am I afraid to accept a value placed on the what I'm offering or what I'm serving? And also, like, people are like good at doing things, but sometimes they're not good at managing the cash flow of the situation too, and that'll get you into a ton of problems as well. You could be the best in the world, but if you run out of money, like, you can't do what you're really good at doing.
Yeah. There's a couple questions layered in there. So I'll check because I want to answer them all. And like, I want to answer with the first, like the worth. Like, you have to understand and accept your worth, right? You can't wait for someone else to see it, which is something we've been conditioned to do, right? We get the trophy because someone else said we're good enough. We get the award or certificate because we've checked off the boxes that say, okay, you deserve it now, right? Mm-hmm. But by way of being born with the gifts that we have, we deserve to be compensated for our gifts. Mm-hmm. We truly do. Because if everybody were operating fully in their purpose and passion, they would be a very specific contribution to humanity, right? I work with people on their emotional intelligence. I don't want to be an electrician. I don't want to be anything other than what I am, right? Mm-hmm. And so what that requires is being able to appreciate my gifts and talents and purpose, and then learn the business side of it. And so you kind of asked, like, what taught you that you needed to make that transition, right? I believed, I held on to the vision. I know what I'm here to do. I'm so clear about that. And I kept trying to come from only the heart space, meaning like I kept showing up to promote and to share and to talk about what I do. And people loved it. They were very inspired. There's a difference. And I'm going to speak specifically about my transition, right? Like, I was inspirational, but not transformational. Mm-hmm. And I had to cross over for that. So what I knew I had to do was bring my big ideas out of cloud nine and bring them onto the ground and be able to show somebody, this is what it looks like to work with me. This is how I would serve you. So for me, that transition looked like creating the actual business structure and showing people this is the process of transformation tangibly. They could hold on to, okay, here's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and we'll work together for 3 months and it'll be this much money. Like people need tangibles. And so for those of you, anybody, a creative heart especially, when you want to offer your gifts to the world, you also have to be able to package them. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't diminish your work to package it. It actually lifts it up. It makes it available. And so you have to become very skilled at explaining what it is that you do. Because we get offended when people don't see it the way we see it. And we get our feelings hurt. So then we're like, nobody understands me. Nobody likes it. Oh, this is stupid. I'm done. Right?
Yeah.
So we give up real easy. And then one last thing I wanted to share about that, was like the way, I just lost it. It came back. Maybe it'll come back later, but the being able to like value what you do and explain it is really, really important for people.
Yeah, for sure. You touched on a lot of really key concepts. And I think too, when you start putting a value on what you're providing, it improves the message you're offering. Because you go, if somebody's going to pay me to do this, I better be good. It better be more like it better feel like to them that they got to steal. Like I can't believe I should have paid 10 times as much for this. And because you have that mindset, you dig in deeper and you get better at what you're doing. And because you get better at what you're doing, you're providing more value. Like it just kind of like perpetuates itself.
Well, and it came back because that's like, thank you, thank you, is we identify with our gift so much that when people reject it, we feel rejected. Mm-hmm. So it is, there's a really great book about most of this, which is called The War of Art, because he talks about the way that the amateur, you're an amateur when you're just starting, but when you turn pro, you no longer identify with your own art in such a way that people are just buying the product, right? And so it's not that if you hear a no, when we're starting and we're an amateur, it's like, oh, they said no, I failed at the sale, I am a failure. Mm-hmm. We really internalize the failures or the disappointments, or maybe just the initiations, like learning, right? We internalize it as if we messed everything up, but we have to be able to almost disassociate with our products so that we can sell them as products.
Yeah, I love what you're talking about. That's amazing. And you're right. Like the art of it, it's like you have a unique approach with the Hearts Unleashed. It's like it's not anybody else's art. Like, and it's a form of art and science mix, but you do that and like you go, hey, I told somebody about it one time, they didn't like it. Oh, I'm gonna give up. But art's the same way. Like art isn't for everybody, and there's people that appreciate things, and you just got to get your message and the person that's ready to receive it. And sometimes, there's things that not just like maybe art like a painting, but art like a movie, art like a song, and you hear it and in your life you don't like it. And then as you get older, your appreciation for things change, and your all of a sudden it becomes like, hey, this is really powerful. I'm kind of getting this. Like this makes sense to me now. I'm kind of, but there's lessons in life that you have to learn before you're ready for that's why like some of the things are sitting right beside, like you said, you're driving down the road thinking about what should I name my podcast? What should I name my podcast? Like it should have been clear from the beginning, like Hearts Unleashed. Like, why didn't you know that? Like the second you thought of a podcast, like, but sometimes you have to go through the process to receive the message. And that's amazing stuff. So I want to ask you, what does it mean to you to be all in on an idea or an outcome?
I think it's so important, especially, based on what I've written, based on the way that I share myself, right? Like I talk about quitting and being a quitter. but all in, like it's, oh God, like I wish I could put the passion into the microphone, which maybe I am, maybe I'm not, but like to show up every day for the vision that is only seen by you, right? Because I believe that we are all like one, right? You were kind of were touching on that a little bit earlier, but that you could read 10 personal development books and you would, after, 5 or 6, you would really start to get, we're all saying the same thing. Mm-hmm. We're all delivering the same truth, but we're packaging it in our personal way. And like, I love adding my own vernacular. I love adding my flair, this Abigail body and identity. But you're right, because I actually was a ghostwriter once upon a time. And I realized this is a great breakthrough. I was writing something and I was jamming out on the keyboard and it was this beautiful message. And it was going to go into a book that was packaged in someone else's name and mission and identity, right? And so I knew, I was like, wow, even so I'm, as a white female writing for a Black male, right? That other people are going to identify with that man that will not identify with me. And it's okay. It is so okay. And that's why it's so important for every single person to live out their gifts, because no matter how loud I shout, no matter how far I reach, I will not not be seen and heard by everyone, right? None of us will. So we have to trust that everyone takes and fulfills their role in humanity. And so being all in is trusting the vision that you see and following all the way through and showing up, as we've been talking about this whole conversation, is like, show up after you hear no, show up when nobody listens to what you publish or reads what you write, right? Like, just keep showing up, or buys what you paint, or buys what you build, like whatever. You keep showing up, because if you keep showing up, I really believe that the only way to fail is to quit. Like, that is so true for me. And so I just believe all in is about going again and again and again and again.
Yeah. I love your answer.
Thank
answer.
You.
And the idea of like getting that message out, like, and how, when you're telling the story about writing the ghostwriter, I literally thought it was going to go a different direction. I thought you were going to get mad that like you were writing this vision that's yourself and like you should be the ones given it, but you went this other way of like, it doesn't matter because somebody else related to your message because of how they identified with them, which is kind of this weird thing of like how we tune people out, maybe because of how we associate who that message is coming from. So we don't even listen to the message, but the messages are presented in a different format that we relate to. It's like, oh yeah, this totally makes sense. It's like, I was just telling you that, but because, I don't know, it was very interesting to me. So, let's talk one more question about Hearts Unleashed and what you're up to. What is the big goal that you're working on or not working on right now with Hearts Unleashed that you wish you had been doing or wish you were doing?
Well, I heard 2 questions in there. When you said big goal, I immediately, like, my 20-year plan came to mind, which I'm purposely not working on because it's my 20-year plan, right? So it's like to be. I imagine having a Hearts Unleashed headquarters here in San Clemente or in Southern California in general, where I can host retreats, like live in-person retreats and events and VIP days and, just things of that nature. So there's a big goal that is yet to be unfolded and unleashed, let's say. But what I'm not working on, I'll tell you, I've authored 2 books already and I'm working on one right now, but there's this one book that I keep showing up to write. It's called I Can't, The Greatest Lie in Human History. Mm-hmm. And I keep sitting down to write it, and another book pushes its way through and says, no, me first. So like I sat down last November to write I Can't, and Talking to the Trees said, nope, me first. And this right now, like in June, I sat down to write I Can't again. And the next book, Alchemizing Judgment, said, no, me first. And I'm like, okay, guys, like enough already. I'll write you already. So one thing I'm not working on right now is that book is I Can't.
What do you think it is that would be holding you back? Is it just there's other missions that there's other stories that need to be told, or
Mhm.
are you not digging deep enough, and then there's something that's holding you back, and so you're choosing a little bit easier path and avoiding it?
Well, great question. Cause being who I am, like I get very, what's that movie? Like Inception, like do, 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 like,
Yeah.
where am I? What's going on? And so sometimes I question my own thoughts, but what I know is I really want to write. I can't. And I think it's from my ego. Like my mind wants to write that book, but my heart is the one that will dictate when a different book comes through. Because I had written plenty of seed chapters for Talking to the Trees. And I actually wrote it I wrote it in the month of March and published it on May 1st, because this book was so determined to come through. Like I had some seed chapters and I'm like, I'll write that in 2023. Like it's my first fictional narrative. It's not important, right? Like I actually pushed that one off, but it's such a relevant story right now. It is so important. And like the quarantine comes into play, or not, it's not written into it, but it's a spiritual journey through nature to ground and connect to our inner truth and our spirituality. And right now in the world of craziness, like we need that. We need to find our center. And so I realized like how important that book was. And the night that I wrote the last paragraph of it, I just sat and I cried, because what I didn't know was how healing it was going to be for me. Because that book, writing it, made so much sense of phases of my life that I didn't understand until that very moment. And so I know that what's coming through is coming through the most authentically.
That's an amazing story. Like this has been like a super fun conversation with you. It could last forever, hours, I bet. So let's talk a little bit about the ideal people you work with. Who's your ideal audience? Who's that person that really connects with you and you connect with them, and just together it just doesn't even feel like work, it just feels like magic?
Yeah. There's a specific phase in our life that I will start with anybody and work with them from any point after. And it's called the enough is enough crowd. The crowd that is done people pleasing, right? So when we get out of school and we join adulting, I call that phase the shock and awe phase. It's like, whoa, nobody told me about all this, right? Like, so there's that phase that everybody has to go through. And then there's what nowadays I would call the social media syndrome, where we try living up to everybody else and everything else, the Joneses and all that, and everything we thought we should have been. But then there comes this very pivotal moment that you can feel physically, where you've done everything you ever thought you'd do. You got the job, the house, the family, the husband, the wife, and you're still not fulfilled. And you recognize that, but you keep on pushing, right? This is where we talked about the unhealthy quitting. We don't quit it. We feel the energetic ending, but we don't. And then there's whatever happens that awakens people and says, no more. I am done being anybody but exactly who I am, right? Like, and that's the enough is enough crowd. They're done pleasing, they're over it, and they're ready to do whatever it takes to transform, to be themselves finally.
Yeah, I identify with that point in your life where you go through the motions, you've done the stuff you're supposed to do, and you're and I describe it as this: like you set goals for yourself and you start checking the box, and you start going, hey, if I get to this point in my life, I'm gonna make it. I've made it. Like it's all downhill after that.
I can relax.
And then you get to that point, you're like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? Yes. And then you just go, am I just going to be on this train for the rest of my life of never like always chasing the next thing? Like, how can I find that fulfillment, that sense of joy, the feeling like I'm leaving an impact on the world, and I'm doing things that bring me pure happiness? And you're not always going to have 100% days, and they're not always going to be the best. There's ups and downs, but you just know like, hey, what I'm doing means more to me, and it's bigger than myself, and it's not just, another feather in the cap. And it's like, I got a lot of feathers, man. And I don't even like this hat.
Yes. I'm so with you. So
cool. So where should people go if they want to get connected to you?
Yeah, I would say my AbigailGazda.com. I like to say it's 2020. If you find me in one place, you find me every place. So if you head to AbigailGazda.com, it's the best place to really look at. You can find the podcast. You can find me on social media. You can also look at like the shop tab. I got a lot of freebies that people can check out and courses and whatnot. But it's really the best place to get started. That's for sure. And there's also, right now, if people want to go to AbigailGazda.com, I have a quarantine toolkit for them. That's free. It's like a self-study guide to really look at what I call the pillars of empowerment. And it's about living an empowered life. So if you're really struggling through some stuff, then they can head over there and do a little self-study project and see where am I disempowered in life and how can I get empowered?
Awesome stuff. So I encourage you to go over there, connect with Abigail. If you do have a conversation with her, tell her where you found her, let her know. I think you're up to amazing stuff. And whether or not you feel like you have a story to share, I think you do. And I think I would go to Abigail and find amazing stories and discover your story. Live up to your potential, unleash your heart. So thank you so much for this conversation and awesome stuff. We're going to have you back on soon for sure.
Ooh, that's fun. I'm in.
Okay, take care.
Thanks, guys.
Make sure to visit our website, therealnatepeo.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, so you'll never miss an episode of All In. While you're at it, if you found value, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if simply tell 2 friends about the show. Looking to connect? You can find Nate Peo on LinkedIn or Instagram.